No ship crossed Earth space by accident. The region did not sit near trade routes. It did not offer rare minerals or shortcut lanes. It was not rich, strategic, or beautiful. On every modern star map, it was marked the same way, darkened, sealed, and labeled with a single phrase in old galactic standard. Forbidden. Do not enter. Most captains never asked why. The Empire, however, did not believe in warnings without proof. Admiral Kale Virex stood on the command deck of the Imperial flagship Glory of Dawn, staring at the holographic projection of the Sol system. A yellow star. 8 planets. 1 small blue world. Dead space, he said calmly. No active signals. No fleets. No colonies. Around him, officers shifted uneasily. Several were veterans. They had heard the stories. Every empire had. Traders spoke of ships that never returned. Scouts whispered about sensors failing and stars behaving strangely. Entire expeditions erased from record. But stories were not evidence. The charts are outdated, Virex continued. Humanity was classified as a pre-warp species. They never reached the stars. They never joined the galaxy. A junior officer hesitated before speaking. Admiral, some of the warnings predate the Empire itself. Virex turned slowly. Then they are myths. The Imperial fleet waited behind him. 3 carriers, 12 battleships, and dozens of escorts. Enough firepower to erase a modern civilization in hours. Enough to crush fear. Proceed, Virex ordered. The fleet advanced. The moment the first ship crossed the invisible boundary of Earth space, something went wrong. Long-range sensors flickered. Star positions shifted by fractions of a degree. Time synchronization slipped out of alignment. It was subtle, almost ignorable, but every system officer felt it. Report, Virex said. Minor distortions, the sensor chief replied. Nothing hostile. Space-time variance within survivable margins. The fleet pushed deeper. Then communications cut out. Not failed. Not jammed. Gone. The ships could still talk to each other, but nothing beyond the boundary responded. The galaxy outside Earth space had gone silent, as if sealed behind a wall. Virex's expression tightened. Restore external comms. Unable to comply, Admiral. Before he could respond, every display on the bridge went dark. For half a heartbeat, the flagship drifted blind. Then the screens came back online. A single message filled every channel. No encryption. No insignia. Just plain text, written in an old human language that Imperial translators struggled to process before finally rendering it in standard galactic speech. You were warned. The bridge froze. Trace the signal, Virex snapped. There is no source, the sensor chief said, voice strained. It's everywhere. Before another order could be given, alarms screamed. One of the escort ships vanished. No explosion. No debris. One moment it was there, its signal strong and clear, and the next, empty space. Collision, an officer asked. No impact detected, the sensor chief replied. The ship didn't move. It didn't break apart. It simply stopped existing. Silence fell over the bridge. Then another ship disappeared. And another. The fleet opened fire. Energy lances tore through the void. Missiles streaked toward invisible targets. The Imperial Armada unleashed enough power to crack planets. But nothing answered. No return fire. No enemies on sensors. Just absence. Admiral, a tactical officer whispered, this is not an ambush. This is containment. Virex stared at the star ahead. The yellow sun burned steadily, indifferent and ancient. Humanity is extinct, he said, more to himself than to his crew. They cannot be doing this. As if in response, a new signal appeared. This time, it came with an image. A human face filled the central display. Not armored. Not monstrous. Calm. Old. Eyes steady and tired. This is Earth, the figure said, voice clear and even. You have entered restricted space. Virex stepped forward. Identify your authority. We are the authority, the human replied. We always were. The bridge officers watched in stunned silence. You were classified as a primitive species, Virex said. Your records show no interstellar capability. The human nodded once. Our records show otherwise. Behind the human, the image shifted. Ancient structures came into view. Vast machines hidden in orbit, buried in shadows, woven into space itself. Satellites older than the Empire. Weapons that did not glow or charge, but simply waited. You are trespassing, the human continued. This zone exists to prevent what happens next. Virex straightened. The Empire does not retreat from empty threats. The human expression did not change. This is not a threat, they said. This is a courtesy. Another Imperial battleship vanished. The remaining ships began to panic. Formation broke. Engines flared as captains tried to pull back, only to find the boundary would not release them. Space had closed. Why? Virex demanded. Why hide? Why vanish from the galaxy? The human looked away for the first time. Because we learned, they said quietly. Every empire believes itself mature. Every empire believes it deserves everything it can take. The human looked back. We left so the galaxy could grow without us burning it down. Virex felt something unfamiliar crawl up his spine. Fear. You will stand down, he said. Or this becomes war. The human nodded again. Yes, they replied. It does. The transmission ended. Around the Imperial fleet, the darkness moved. Not with speed, not with sound, but with intent. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy would remember why Earth space was forbidden. Panic spread through the Imperial fleet like a living thing. It did not come from explosions or enemy fire. It came from silence. From the growing gaps in formation where warships had been moments before. From the impossible truth settling into every officer's mind. They were not fighting an enemy. They were inside a system that had already decided their fate. Admiral Kale Virex stood rigid on the bridge of the Glory of Dawn. His fleet was bleeding without wounds. Every tactical doctrine he knew depended on reaction, on counterfire, on visible threats. Earth space offered none of that. Damage report, he demanded. The tactical officer swallowed. We've lost 4 destroyers and 1 battleship. No debris, no energy spike, no residual radiation. Casualties, all hands, the officer said quietly. The words landed heavier than any alarm. Virex turned to the sensor pit. Mapped the system again. Every anomaly, every shadow. The sensors obeyed and revealed something terrifying. Earth space was not empty. It was layered. Grids overlapped grids. Invisible lattices curved through space, bending light and gravity in subtle ways. Objects that should have been asteroids were revealed as machines, dormant until moments ago. Even the background radiation behaved incorrectly, as if filtered through something ancient and deliberate. This entire system is artificial, the sensor chief whispered. Not built recently. These structures are old, older than the Empire, older than most recorded civilizations. Virex's jaw tightened. That's impossible. No, Admiral, the chief replied. What's impossible is that we missed it. A junior archivist stepped forward, hands shaking as he held a data slate. Sir, I accessed restricted historical records. Pre-Imperial. Pre-Federation. Virex nodded once. Speak. There are references to humanity, the archivist said. Not as primitives. As participants. The bridge grew still. Participants in what? Virex asked. Galactic stabilization efforts, the archivist replied. Peacekeeping wars. Extinction-level conflicts. Every major collapse in early galactic history ends with the same phrase. He hesitated. Human intervention. Virex stared at him. That phrase doesn't exist in official records. It was removed, the archivist said. Systematically. Someone erased them. As if summoned by the words, the human transmission returned. This time, it did not fill the screen. It hovered calmly at the center of the bridge, small, controlled, confident. You are searching your past, the human said. That is natural. Virex stepped forward. You altered the records. We corrected them, the human replied. The galaxy could not grow while fearing us. You erased yourselves? Virex said. Why? The human paused. Because every time we saved the galaxy, they said, it learned the wrong lesson. The image shifted. Scenes began to play, grainy, ancient, but horrifyingly clear. Human fleets fighting alongside alien civilizations long dead. Humans standing between star eaters and fragile worlds. Humans burning entire armadas to save species that would later forget them. Then the images changed. Treaties broken. Human warnings ignored. Weapons stolen and copied. Wars reignited by those who believed they had outgrown their protectors. We were not worshipped. The human continued. We were resented. The bridge officers watched in silence as one final image appeared. a human world in flames, destroyed by an alliance that feared humanity more than extinction. We won every war, the human said softly. But peace never lasted. Virex clenched his fists. So you hid. We withdrew, the human corrected. There is a difference. Outside the flagship, space shifted again. A massive structure emerged near Earth's orbit, not moving, not attacking, simply revealing itself. It was vast beyond comprehension, wrapped around the planet like a silent guardian. What is that? A navigation officer whispered. A lock, the sensor chief replied. On reality itself. The human nodded. Earth space is not defended by fleets. It is defended by rules. Virex felt cold. What rules? He asked. 1. The human replied. No one enters uninvited. Another Imperial ship vanished. This time, the human spoke before panic could rise. We are not hunting you, they said. We are waiting for you to understand. Understand what? Virex snapped. That your empire is young, the human said. And like all young powers, it mistakes silence for weakness. Virex straightened, pride flaring. The empire spans thousands of systems. So did others, the human replied. The transmission faded. On the bridge, officers whispered prayers in languages long forgotten. Admiral, the tactical officer said urgently, our engines are responding again. We can attempt withdrawal. Virex hesitated. Retreat meant survival, but also disgrace. The Empire had never backed down from a system it claimed. To flee now would shatter the illusion of Imperial dominance across the galaxy. He thought of the archives, of the erased histories, of a species powerful enough to rewrite memory itself. How many more ships will we lose if we stay? He asked. The sensor chief shook his head slowly. All of them. Virex closed his eyes for a moment. Then another battleship disappeared. The scream of its crew cut off mid-transmission, frozen forever in the fleet's internal logs. Virex opened his eyes. Open a channel, he said. The human face returned almost instantly. This is Admiral Kale Virex of the Imperial Expansion Fleet, he said carefully. We request negotiation. The humans studied him in silence. Negotiation implies balance, they said. You have none. Virex swallowed his pride. Then tell us the cost. The human leaned closer to the camera. The cost, they said, is that you leave Earth space alive and tell the galaxy the truth. Virex frowned. The truth about what? That humanity is not gone, the human said. That we are watching, and that the next empire that enters uninvited will not be warned. Virex hesitated. Outside, the darkness pressed closer. The lattice tightened. Space itself seemed to hold its breath. What happens if we refuse? Virex asked. The human's voice remained calm. Then Earth space remains forbidden, they said. And you become the reason why. The transmission ended. The Imperial fleet hung suspended between annihilation and humiliation. And for the first time in its history, the Empire faced an enemy that did not seek conquest, only consequences. The Imperial fleet did not retreat. Not at first. Admiral Kale Virex stood at the center of the bridge, surrounded by officers who waited for an order that would decide whether their names were remembered as cowards or erased as fools. Outside the viewports, Earth's star burned steadily, unchanged by fear or pride. Their power is real, Virex said slowly. But power unused invites challenge. Several officers looked at him in disbelief. They've erased ships without firing, the tactical officer said. They control space itself. Virex nodded. Then we do not fight space. We fight symbols. He turned to the weapons console. Target the outer structures. The machines were revealed near Earth's orbit. Fire a single precision strike. Admiral, the weapons chief said, voice tight. They warned. They warned us not to enter, Virex cut in. We are already condemned. If humanity wishes to end us, it will do so regardless. But if they bleed, the galaxy will know they are not gods. The order went out. One Imperial battleship aligned its spinal cannon, a weapon designed to crack moons. Energy built, space warping around the barrel. For a moment, nothing interfered. Then the cannon fired. The beam crossed the void and vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed, deleted. Every sensor screamed in protest as the laws of physics failed to explain what had just happened. The beam had not struck a shield. It had not hit a structure. It had ceased to exist mid-flight. On the bridge, silence turned into dread. The human transmission returned instantly, sharper this time. "We told you this space is governed," the human said. "You chose to test it." Virex straightened. "The Empire does not bow to hidden jailers." The humans studied him with something close to disappointment. "This is why we left," they said. Outside the flagship, space shifted again. This time, the humans did not erase a ship. They revealed one. A single human vessel appeared near the fleet. It was small, no larger than a frigate. Dark, angular, and utterly unadorned. No running lights. No energy signature worth tracking. Just presence. "It's alone," the tactical officer said. "No escort. No weapons charging." Virex frowned. "Scan it." "We can't," the sensor chief replied. "Our instruments slide off it, as if it refuses to be observed." The human ship did not move. Then it spoke, not in words, but in action. A pulse rippled outward. Not energy, not gravity. Information. Imperial systems flooded with data they did not request. Star maps, fleet formations, command hierarchies, personal profiles of every officer on the bridge. "They know us," an officer whispered. "They always did," the human voice said calmly over the open channel. "We mapped your empire before it learned to spell its own name." The human ship rotated slightly, aligning with the Imperial formation. "This vessel," the human continued, "is unarmed by your definitions." Virex laughed once, sharply. "And yet you expect us to fear it." The human did not answer. The ship vanished, then reappeared inside the formation. A battleship split in half, not from impact, but from absence. The space it occupied simply folded inward, collapsing the ship as if reality itself had rejected it. Another ship followed, then another. The human vessel did not fire. It moved. Each movement rewrote the battlefield. "Focus fire," Virex roared. "All ships, concentrate." The fleet obeyed. Dozens of weapons locked on the human ship. Beams, missiles, kinetic rounds, all converged at once. For a brief, hopeful moment, the target disappeared under fire. Then the human ship emerged untouched. Not shielded. Unchanged. "Admiral," the sensor chief said faintly, "our weapons are passing through it. It exists slightly out of phase." The human voice returned. "You are still thinking in terms of force," they said. "That is understandable. You have never needed anything else." The ship moved again. This time, it did not attack a warship. It targeted the carriers. Within seconds, the Empire lost its fighters, its drones, its ability to project power beyond its own hulls. The battlefield emptied, leaving only capital ships drifting in growing terror. "Stop," Virex said quietly into the open channel. "This proves nothing. You are stronger. We see that now." The human ship halted. The human face appeared again, closer than before. "This proves everything," they said. "It proves that when given a warning, your empire chose pride." Virex clenched his jaw. "If you destroy us, the galaxy will unite against you." The human considered this. "Perhaps," they said. "Or perhaps it will finally listen." Behind the human ship, more vessels appeared. Not hundreds, not thousands, just enough. Each one is identical. Each one is silent. "Those are all of them," an officer whispered. The sensor chief nodded slowly. "Every signal matches. No variations. No command ship." "They don't need one," the tactical officer said. "They fight as a system." The human voice spoke one final time. "We will not chase you," they said. "We will not conquer you." The fleet boundary flickered. For the next 60 seconds, the human continued. "Earth space will allow your retreat." Virex stared at the timer that appeared on his display. After that, the human said, "We stop being patient." The transmission ended. For the first time since entering Earth space, the Imperial engines responded fully. Chaos erupted across the fleet as captains scrambled to escape. Ships collided. Formations broke. Pride shattered under survival instinct. Virex stood motionless as his fleet fled around him. He did not order a pursuit. He did not order retaliation. He watched the human ships remain still, letting the Empire run. As the glory of dawn crossed the boundary, space snapped back into normality. Communications with the wider galaxy returned in a flood of noise and relief. Behind them, Earth space sealed itself once more. The human ships vanished. On the bridge, an officer exhaled a sob of relief. "We're alive." Virex did not answer. He stared at the star maps now lighting up with incoming messages, demands for explanation, reports of losses, questions that would soon become accusations. He knew the truth. The Empire had not lost a battle. It had been spared, and that mercy terrified him more than annihilation ever could, because the galaxy would ask why Earth's space was forbidden. And now, the Empire would have to answer. The Imperial fleet escaped Earth space in pieces. Ships limped through the boundary with scorched hulls and shattered formations. Pride had not survived the crossing. By the time Admiral Kale Virex's flagship reached safe distance, the fleet no longer looked like a symbol of dominance. It looked like a warning. Across the galaxy, sensors lit up. Emergency signals spread. Questions flooded Imperial channels faster than answers could be invented. Virex stood alone on the bridge, staring at the star map. Earth's space was sealed again, blackened, silent, and untouchable. "They let us go," he said quietly. No one argued. Within hours, the Empire convened an emergency war council. Generals, ministers, and strategists appeared as towering holograms, their faces tight with anger and fear. The losses were undeniable. Entire battle groups gone. No enemy wreckage. No proof of victory. "You withdrew," one minister accused. "From a single system." Virex met his gaze. "We were allowed to withdraw." The room fell silent. "What does that mean?" another demanded. "It means," Virex replied, "that humanity chose restraint." Murmurs rippled through the council. Humanity. The name alone felt wrong in their mouths, too small for what it now represented. "They are hiding behind tricks," a general spat. "Phase weapons. Exotic technology. Nothing we cannot match." Virex shook his head. "They are not hiding. They are waiting." He activated a data stream. Footage from the engagement filled the chamber. Ships vanishing, weapons erased mid-flight, space folding as if reality itself obeyed another master. "This is not superiority," Virex continued. "This is authorship. They did not fight within our laws of war. They rewrote them." The council erupted. "Then we escalate. We mobilize the outer fleets. We warn allied powers." Virex raised a hand. "And do what? Invade Earth again?" "They told us the next warning would not come." The council fell into uneasy silence. Far away, beyond Imperial borders, other civilizations were already reacting. Traders whispered of the fleet that returned broken. Old species stirred ancient memories. Forbidden texts resurfaced. And in the deep dark, Earth listened. Inside Earth space, the quiet ended. Dormant systems across the Sol system fully awakened. Not in alarm, but in readiness. Structures that had slept for centuries synchronized. Deep space arrays recalibrated. Machines older than empires checked their parameters. Human commanders gathered, not in a single room, not on a single world, but across a distributed network that spanned Earth, Luna, and far-orbit habitats. No uniforms, no banners, just calm voices and shared purpose. "They crossed the line," one commander said. "They crossed it already," another replied. "The question is what comes next." A third voice joined, steady and old. "The galaxy has noticed." Data flowed between them. Signals intercepted from Imperial space. Emergency treaties forming. Fleets shifting position. "They will talk," the old voice continued. "They will posture. Some will prepare to strike us out of fear." "Do we respond?" a younger commander asked. "Not yet." On Earth, the planet turned peacefully beneath the stars. Cities slept. Oceans moved. Billions of lives went on, unaware how close the galaxy had come to remembering them the hard way. Humanity had not built its defenses for war. They were built to end it quickly. Back in Imperial space, Admiral Virex faced his own reckoning. The Emperor demanded answers. Virex stood before the throne chamber, surrounded by symbols of Imperial power, golden arches, burning stars, banners taken from conquered worlds. "You failed," the Emperor said, voice echoing and cold. "I survived," Virex replied. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "At great cost." "At necessary cost," Virex said. "If we had stayed longer, we would not be here to speak." The Emperor rose slowly. "Do you suggest we accept humiliation?" "I suggest," Virex said carefully, "that we accept reality." He projected the human transmission into the chamber, the calm face, the steady voice, the warning given and ignored. "They did not threaten conquest," Virex said. "They threatened consequence." Silence filled the hall. What do they want? The Emperor asked at last. Virex hesitated. They want to be left alone, and for the galaxy to remember why. The Emperor laughed once, sharp and bitter. No power like that stays silent forever. Virex did not argue. He knew the Emperor was already planning, and Earth knew it too. Deep within the system, a massive construct adjusted its orbit, a structure not meant for battle, but for announcement. It had been built long ago, then hidden, waiting for the moment silence was no longer enough. Humanity had hoped that moment would never come. A human signal reached the commanders. They are mobilizing, the old voice said. Not toward us yet. Toward everyone. They will build a coalition, another said. Fear will do the rest. Then we must speak again, the old voice replied. But louder. Across the Sol system, energy flowed into the ancient construct. Space bent gently around it, like water around a stone. Beyond Earth space, sensors across the galaxy began to register something new. Not a weapon, a presence. Stars flickered as if adjusting their focus. Long-range arrays struggled to define what they were seeing. Something vast was unfolding near a forbidden system. On distant worlds, astronomers stared in disbelief. What is that? They whispered. Back on Earth, the human commanders watched the data scroll in silence. We warned them, one said. Yes, the old voice replied. And now we remind them. The construct finished aligning. For the first time in centuries, humanity prepared to address the entire galaxy at once. Not with threats, not with demands, but with proof. And far away, in the halls of the Empire, Admiral Kale Virex felt a chill run through him as reports poured in from every direction. Something was waking. Something the galaxy had forgotten. Something that, once fully revealed, would make pride a luxury no empire could afford. The signal reached the galaxy like a slow-moving storm. It did not arrive as a blast or a command. It arrived as a constant, undeniable presence that pressed against sensors and minds alike. Civilizations across known space paused their wars, halted their trade lanes, and turned their instruments toward the same forbidden coordinate. Earth space. The construct did not announce itself with words. It changed the sky. Across thousands of systems, stars briefly dimmed and then returned brighter, as if reality itself had blinked. Navigational beacons recalibrated without instruction. Ancient observatories, long dismissed as ceremonial relics, came online by themselves, their forgotten systems humming with renewed purpose. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy was being addressed by something that did not ask permission. Inside Imperial space, alarms echoed through halls that had not known fear in generations. Admiral Kale Virex stood again before the War Council, but this time the voices were quieter. No one interrupted. No one shouted. They were listening. What is it doing? A strategist asked. Virex did not look away from the projection. It's not doing, he said. It's showing. The construct unfolded, not physically, but conceptually. Layers of space peeled back, revealing records embedded into the fabric of the system itself. The galaxy was not watching a broadcast. It was reading a memory. Images poured into every open channel. Not curated. Not filtered. Truth, raw and unsoftened. Worlds burning under threats the modern galaxy had forgotten. Star Eaters consuming systems whole. Ancient empires screaming as their fleets failed against forces they did not understand. And then, humans. Not as conquerors. As shields. Human fleets positioned between devastation and survival. Human commanders making decisions that sacrificed entire squadrons to buy minutes for evacuation. Human engineers tearing apart their own worlds to turn them into traps for horrors that could not be allowed to escape. This is fabrication, a counselor whispered, but his voice lacked conviction. No, Virex replied. This is why they erased themselves. The images continued. Treaties signed with shaking hands. Promises of shared defense. Gratitude that curdled into fear as humanity's power became impossible to ignore. Then betrayal. Weapons reverse-engineered. Borders violated. Human worlds attacked preemptively for galactic safety. The construct did not dramatize the final images. It did not need to. Earth burned once. Luna was scared. Mars cracked. Humanity survived, but something inside it closed forever. Across the galaxy, silence followed. Not all. Guilt. On Earth, human commanders watched without expression. They had argued for centuries about whether this moment should ever come. "They will hate us for this," a younger voice said. "They already did," the old voice replied. "This only removes their excuses." Signals flooded in from every direction. Apologies, demands, denials, offers of alliance, threats masked as concern. The Empire's transmission arrived last. It came directly from the Emperor. "Humanity," the Emperor said, face rigid and controlled. "You have made your point. The galaxy acknowledges your role in its history. But this display destabilizes every balance we have built." The old human voice answered, calm and unyielding. "Balance built on ignorance collapses on its own," they said. "We merely remove the blindfold." "You invite chaos," the Emperor replied. "No," the human said. "We end it." The Emperor leaned forward. "Then state your demand." The human paused. "We have none." The chamber erupted in confusion. "No territory? No tribute? No submission?" The humans shook their head. "We do not want your worlds. We do not want your loyalty." "Then why show yourselves at all?" the Emperor demanded. The humans' eyes hardened. "Because you crossed our boundary," they said. "And because the galaxy keeps mistaking silence for surrender." The Emperor straightened. "You cannot expect every power to accept your isolation. Fear will turn into aggression." "It already has," the human replied. "That is why this is not a negotiation." Across the galaxy, fleets began to move. Some toward Earth space, some away from it, many into defensive formations, uncertain who the real enemy now was. Within the Empire, a faction of generals reached a decision born of desperation and wounded pride. "If humanity will not rule," one said, "then it must be removed." The order was given in secret. A doomsday weapon, long forbidden, long hidden, was activated, not aimed at Earth directly, aimed at its star. The logic was simple. If humanity's power came from preparation and control, then sudden annihilation would deny them both. Inside Earth space, alarms finally sounded. Not panicking, focused. "They've armed it," a commander said. "Stellar destabilizer. Crude, but effective." "Time to impact?" the old voice asked. "Minutes." For the first time in the story the galaxy would tell, humanity did not have enough time to simply erase the threat. "We can stop it," another commander said, "but not without revealing everything." The old voice is considered. "Then we reveal," they said. Earth's defenses shifted, not to attack, but to intercept. Human ships moved not as individuals, but as a single organism, flowing outward to meet the incoming strike. The Imperial weapon fired. Space screamed as the star's balance was pushed toward collapse. Humanity answered. They did not destroy the weapon. They absorbed it. A human fleet placed itself between the attack and the star, rewriting the energy flow, redirecting annihilation into containment. Ships burned. Crews vanished. Entire constructs failed under the strain. Earth survived. The fleet did not. Across the galaxy, the sight broke something fundamental. Humanity had not struck back in anger. They had chosen sacrifice over dominance. The Emperor watched the feeds in silence as the weapon's failure became undeniable. His generals stared, pale and shaking. "They saved their world," one whispered. "No," Virex said quietly from the back of the chamber. "They saved ours." Earth space sealed again, but not before one final message passed through every channel, every language, every mind. "We are not your rulers," the human voice said. "We are the proof of what restraint looks like when power has no equal." The signal ended. The construct folded back into silence. Across the galaxy, fleets stopped moving. Wars paused. And for the first time in living memory, every civilization asked the same question, not of humanity, but of itself. If they had that power all along, why didn't they use it? The answer frightened them more than any weapon ever could. The aftermath did not arrive with cheers or celebration. It arrived with silence. Across the galaxy, observers replayed the same impossible moment again and again. The human fleet moving into the path of a star-killing weapon, not to strike it down, but to take the blow themselves. Analysts ran simulations that all ended the same way. No civilization would choose that option. Except one. On Earth, the skies were calm. The oceans did not boil. The planet lived on. But in orbit, the cost was written in empty space where human ships had been moments before. Human commanders stood in stillness as casualty reports finalized themselves. Entire crews, entire squadrons, gone. No one spoke for a long time. They knew the risk. A younger commander said at last, voice tight. They chose it anyway, the old voice replied. That was the point. Beyond Earth's space, the galaxy struggled to understand what it had just witnessed. For centuries, power had meant domination. Strength had meant survival at someone else's expense. Humanity had inverted the equation. In Imperial space, the consequences were immediate and brutal. The revelation of the secret stellar weapon shattered what remained of Imperial unity. Worlds that had obeyed out of fear now questioned the cost. Border systems refused orders. Allied states froze military cooperation. Admiral Kale Virex stood before the Emperor once more, but the throne room no longer felt imposing. It felt fragile. They exposed us, the Emperor said, his voice stripped of certainty. Not just to the galaxy, to ourselves. They exposed the truth, Virex replied. That we would burn a star to protect our pride. The Emperor looked away. And they died for it. Virex shook his head. They died so no one else would. Outside the Empire, smaller civilizations reacted first. Old species, those with long memories, released archives they had hidden out of shame. Records of human aid, of debts never repaid. Younger powers watched with something like awe. They could have ruled us, one counselor said in a neutral world. Why didn't they? No one answered. Because the answer was uncomfortable. Inside Earth's space, humanity made no announcements. No declarations of victory. No demands for apology. They mourned. Names were recorded. Faces remembered. Loss was acknowledged without spectacle. Then the old voice spoke again, not as a commander, but as a reminder. This was the cost of being seen, they said. Now we must decide what being seen means. Signals poured in, uninvited and unfiltered. Requests for alliance. Pleas for protection. Offers of tribute dressed up as partnership. Humanity refused them all. We will not replace your empires. The reply went. We will not manage your conflicts. You asked to see us. Now you must learn to stand without us. The galaxy did not like that answer. Fear does not fade easily. In the vacuum left by imperial weakness, opportunists moved. Pirate coalitions grew bold. Old rivalries reignited. Several powers began quietly studying how to counter human technology, just in case. Humanity watched it all. They did not intervene. Not yet. Admiral Virex resigned his command 2 days after the incident. Not publicly. Quietly. He returned to a private estate on a minor world and watched the stars through old glass. He knew the Empire would fracture. He knew someone would try to provoke humanity again, convinced that enough force could succeed where pride had failed. He only hoped he would not live to see it. On Earth, a memorial was constructed, not on the surface, but in orbit. A ring of light. Invisible unless you knew where to look, marking the space where the fleet had fallen. No monuments. No names carved in stone. Just a boundary. Humanity has drawn many lines in its history. This one was different. This is the last time, the old voice said to the assembled commanders. The last time we step between the galaxy and its own choices. A pause followed. If they try again, someone asked. The answer came without hesitation. Then they will learn why this was mercy. Far beyond Earth's space, in regions untouched by the broadcast, rumors spread in darker corners. A coalition of fringe powers, desperate, angry, and convinced that the galaxy now lived under an unspoken human shadow, began to form. They shared one belief. Humanity's restraint was temporary. And restraint, they reasoned, could be exploited. Deep in the void, engines ignited. Weapons were tested. Plans were made that did not rely on stars or fleets, but on something far more dangerous. Secrecy. On Earth, the censors noticed. They are hiding, a commander said. Learning from our silence, not our strength. The old voice listened to the data streams and felt a familiar weight settle in. So the cycle tries again, they said. The commanders waited. For now, the old voice continued, we watch. We let them choose their path. A new marker appeared on the tactical map, faint, distant, but deliberate. Someone had found a way to move unseen, even within the margins of human observation. A test. Humanity did not move to stop it. Not yet. The galaxy believed the worst had passed, that the sacrifice had closed the chapter. They were wrong. It had only set the terms for what came next. Because power restraint is not a weakness. It is patience. And patience, when it finally ends, reshapes history. The first shot of the new war was never fired. It was hidden. Across the outer reaches of known space, small things began to fail in strange ways. Navigation buoys drifted off course. Long-range comm relays suffered natural outages. A mining colony vanished after reporting a harmless spatial anomaly. Each incident alone meant nothing. Together, they formed a pattern. On Earth, human monitoring systems flagged the behavior within hours. Not alarms. Indicators. Subtle deviations from statistical normality that only a civilization obsessed with prevention would notice. "They're probing," a commander said. "Not us. The gaps around us." "They're learning where we are not looking," another replied. The old voice listened, patient but no longer distant. "And they believe we will stay silent." Across the galaxy, the Fringe Coalition grew bolder. They did not call themselves an empire. They avoided flags, hierarchies, and centralized fleets. They were survivors of fallen states, extremists from broken regimes, scientists who believed humanity's restraint proved fear. They called their doctrine liberation through uncertainty. If no one could see the knife, even gods could bleed. Their plan was not to attack Earth. It was to force humanity to act. They seeded chaos along trade routes, collapsing economies and blaming the vacuum of power left by imperial collapse. They sabotaged planetary defenses, then leaked false data implicating human interference. Fear spread faster than truth ever could. "Humanity is manipulating events," some leaders whispered. "They want dependency," others claimed. "They are deciding who lives and who falls," came the darkest rumor of all. Humanity watched and waited until the day a refugee convoy vanished. Not a military formation, not an armed fleet, civilian ships. Thousands of lives fleeing a border war the Empire no longer controlled. The last transmission showed nothing dramatic. No explosion, no attack, just starts folding inward. On Earth, silence ended. The old voice spoke, and this time it carried something new. "Resolve. Locate them," they said. Human systems shifted gears, not toward defense, but pursuit. Observation lattices tightened. Predictive models unfolded thousands of possible paths and discarded all but one. "They're hiding in negative space pockets," a commander reported. "Borrowed techniques. Crude, but clever. They learned from watching us," another said. "Yes," the old voice replied. "And now they misunderstand us." Human ships moved, not in force, but in precision. 3 vessels only, slipping through space so quietly that even the coalition did not realize they were no longer alone. The ambush was exposed without warning. Coalition ships found their systems speaking back to them, not in commands, but in questions. Why? Every screen lit up with the same word. Panic erupted. "We've been detected." "No, this is inside our systems." Humanity did not erase them, did not strike. Instead, space unfolded, and the human ships appeared in full view for the first time since the sacrifice. Not hidden, not phased, seen. "This is humanity," the old voice said, broadcast openly. "You have murdered civilians to provoke us." Coalition leaders scrambled to respond. "You manipulate the galaxy. You decide when to act and when to hide." "No," the human replied. "You decided that restraint was permission." The coalition commander laughed bitterly. "You won't destroy us. You won't prove our point." The human answer was immediate. "No," they said. "We will prove yours wrong." Humanity acted, but not as executioner. They severed the coalition. Every ship was frozen in place, held by localized reality locks. Every data vault opened simultaneously, broadcasting unfiltered evidence across the galaxy: plans, recordings, orders. The refugee convoy appeared moments later, intact, emerging safely near a neutral system. The light collapsed instantly. Across the galaxy, outrage ignited. The coalition tried to flee. They couldn't. Humanity did not kill them. They delivered them. Every member was placed before the worlds they had destabilized, not in chains, but in truth. Humanity issued one final statement. "We do not rule," the old voice said, "but we will not allow power to hide behind chaos." The galaxy listened. For the first time, it understood the line humanity had drawn. Silence was a choice. Intervention was a consequence. Admiral Kale Virex watched the broadcast from his quiet estate, his hands trembling slightly. He felt something close to relief. They finally understand. he murmured. On Earth, the commanders stood down once more. The ships returned to shadow. The lattices loosened. But this time, Earth space did not fully close. Markers appeared across the stars, subtle, unmistakable. No warnings. Boundaries. The old voice spoke to the commanders one last time. We are done hiding, they said. But we are not coming back. What does that mean? A younger commander asked. It means, the old voice replied. The galaxy now knows where we stand. Earth remained forbidden. But now, everyone knows why. And more importantly, they knew what would happen if they forgot again. History did not end with a battle. It ended with memory. Years passed after the coalition's exposure, but the galaxy never returned to what it had been. Trade resumed. Borders stabilized. Empires rebranded themselves as unions, accords, councils, anything that sounded less absolute than before. But something invisible had changed. Earth space remained forbidden, yet it no longer felt like a mystery wrapped in fear. It felt like a boundary with meaning. Children across hundreds of worlds learned about it in school, not as a warning, but as a lesson. Power exists. Restraint is a choice. Consequences are real. Humanity did not speak again. That silence was louder than any broadcast. On distant worlds, leaders found themselves hesitating before issuing orders that once would have been automatic. Generals reread reports. Admirals remembered vanished fleets and ships that never exploded, only ceased. The galaxy had learned something uncomfortable. The strongest civilization it had ever known did not want to rule it. That fact haunted everyone. On Earth, time moved normally. Seasons passed. Cities grew. Humanity rebuilt what had been lost without ceremony or spectacle. The fallen fleet was remembered quietly, in private spaces and personal rituals. No statues, no grand speeches. The dead did not need proof of meaning. High above the planet, the invisible memorials still existed, a thin ring of altered space marking where sacrifice had occurred. No outsider could see it unless humanity allowed them to. No one asked. Human commanders continued their watch, but their numbers grew smaller with each generation. Humanity did not glorify guardianship. It trained successors only as long as necessary. We were never meant to be permanent, the old voice said during one of the last recorded councils. If we are still needed centuries from now, then we failed. The younger commanders listened in silence. What if they forget again? One asked. They will, the old voice replied without bitterness. Every civilization does. And when will they do? The old voice paused. Then Earth space will still be here. Far away, Admiral Kale Virex died quietly in his sleep, long after the empire he served had dissolved into regional states. His final writings were not about regret or shame. They were about clarity. We mistook silence for weakness, he had written, and mercy for permission. His memoirs were banned on several worlds. They spread anyway. Centuries later, a new power rose at the edge of explored space. Not an empire, at least not at first. It expanded carefully, diplomatically, absorbing weaker neighbors under promises of protection. Its leaders studied history. They studied humanity. They concluded, as so many had before, that restraint could be measured, tested, exploited. We will not invade Earth, they said. We will simply surround it. Their fleet stopped just short of forbidden space. Sensors pointed inward. Probes hovered at the boundary, careful not to cross. Nothing happened. Months passed. Years. Some commanders smiled. See? They truly are gone. One ship drifted forward, just enough to test the edge. It crossed the boundary by meters. Nothing exploded. Nothing vanished. Encouraged, the fleet inched closer. Still nothing. Confidence grew. And then the ship's crew heard a sound. Not an alarm. Not a transmission. A memory. Their systems replayed an old recording, not addressed to them, but to someone long dead. A calm human voice, speaking words centuries old. This is your final notice. The ship did not disappear. It was returned. Instantly. Not damaged. Not altered. Just relocated. Back to its origin world, orbiting peacefully above a stunned capital city. The message was clear. Earth space had not slept. It had been watching. The rising power halted its expansion overnight. Borders were redrawn. Fleets pulled back. Leaders spoke carefully, choosing words that avoided absolutes. They had learned without bloodshed. Again, on Earth, the old voice was gone now. Its consciousness finally archived, its role complete. Humanity did not replace it. There was no need. The systems ran quietly on their own. Humanity had never wanted to be remembered as gods, only as proof. Proof that intelligence could choose patience. Proof that power could choose restraint. Proof that survival did not require domination. Earth remained where it had always been, a small blue world around an unremarkable star. Forbidden, not because it was dangerous, but because it had already paid the price of saving everyone else. And somewhere in the dark, whenever a civilization wondered how far it could push before consequence arrived, a single truth answered them from the silence. Earth is not the threat. Earth is the reminder.